Hey, Stephen, how you doing? All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. I've got your work right here. Let me just go ahead and make sure that, okay, got your work there, but I want to address your writing. So I needed to continue with the same principle I used in the front page. I want to center a line for the center stage. So the fabric texture and dark background represents a red brick curtain the stage. All makes perfect sense so far. Darker close to what's behind the curtain. I kind of had a feeling that's where you were going with that. But boy, I got to tell you something. I think this is much more engaging than this. You might consider, see how it looks. I mean, I certainly understand the conceptual reasoning behind that, and that's exactly what I thought when I looked at it. That's what I thought that the meaning was. But think about it and see how it might look. I think it just might be a little bit more engaging with that brighter hue. So think about that. That is the same hue, isn't it? Is that just a darker value, or is that a different hue? I think it's probably the same hue, just added some darker value. Actually, no, this looks a little more brown. So think about it, try it, let me know what you think. Okay, back to the writing. What's been I had to move the signature on the front down even further so I could move the line on the back down and make room for it. Makes sense, right? I'm running into a couple of issues. Well, I want to talk about that in 1 second. Let me do that really quickly before I forget. But I want to make a quick point. And this has nothing to do with what you've done because you've done everything perfectly. So if we bring this over here now, right now, I'm going to grab my straight edge and we can, let me get that out there. We can certainly see that this is in alignment, right? But there's an optical illusion going on here, and the reason being is because of this right here. What this is doing is it's making the signature look like it's forced to the left in the composition. Even though these are in alignment, it looks like they're not. There's two reasons for that. Number one is this stroke right here, and number one, this little beginning stroke in the G for the signature. Those kind of make it gives this illusion that it's pushing it to the left. So for that, we can counter that illusion by just taking this and nudging it to the right a little bit. It won't affect anything. You still have your stroke there. Think about it. Okay, let's go ahead and see. A couple of issues that could use some direction. First, the bold sans serif I am using for my header and then used to emphasize dates on the timeline is Verdana. When I attempted to convert numbers to OpenType, it didn't do a thing. Okay, so, well, you go into the OpenType menu and you convert your numbers to old style figures. Okay, and that is covered in the video right here. This is back at Welcome to Week 4 video. So we've got old style figures, we've got how to set old style figures through the OpenType panel, M-N-, and then here we have all caps, small caps. And then this video kind of shows everything. So what I covered in that video is that in the case, where am I? In the case that I got lost. Okay, in the case that you don't have OpenType capabilities or you don't have old style figures available, what you can do is just reduce the size. Let me see if I just want to make sure I've got that question correct. And to use it, when I attempted to convert it, numbers open, I think when choosing a new font, what can I do to combat this? Simple, just select it and reduce the size by a point or two. Or check it out, see how it works. Well, those are old style right there. So boy, let me see. Those are old style there too. So boy, I'm a little bit, timeline. Okay, timeline doesn't matter because, well, technically you do have some text next to the timeline. So yeah, we could definitely do. So I was going to say, if you're presenting a type just, like in a table or something, it doesn't really matter because old style figures are really meant to kind of coincide with the X height of the associated typeface, as we can clearly see here. So you see how the old style figures are roughly right a little bit bigger than the X height, and just the bottom is the baseline, and they descend a little bit. But that's the whole idea, is to get them more in line with the X height, to give them a more fluid flow with the type. So what you could do here is just select the type and reduce it by a point or two, or until you think it looks right in a good matchup to old style. And you can do the same thing with small caps. So if you have a selection that needs small caps and you don't have small caps available, just select it and reduce the size a little bit. Okay, back to your writing. I mean, I also do that sideways on timeline because verticalized causes too much contrast, and you only have established it horizontal. I got a really good suggestion for you. I think you're going to like it. The vertical lines on the timeline just didn't make sense. I worry about vertical text because too much disruption visually is an incredibly simple layout design, but I think simple works, man. Simple works, Stephen. Don't ever think your type is your layouts are too simple. I mean, there's an old adage in graphic design that says, okay, how do you know when your design is done? How do you know when the composition is done? And the answer is it's not when you can't add anything to it, it's when you can't take anything else away. So think about that. Simplicity is a formula in graphic design that works. Do some research. Look at Hick's law. Look at Occam's razor. Both those principles kind of point to simplicity in design as being the best solution. Okay, let me talk about the timeline. Okay, so I think you've done a great job here. I really do. I mean, your typography is done very, very well. I want to just kind of address this a little bit, this timeline thing. Now, one thing I'm seeing in the timeline is that we've got a continuation of the pen stroke to establish the timeline. That's great, right? But if we just look at the back of the timeline, it doesn't really, there's no meaning there. So this page is not able to stand on its own in terms of creating meaning, creating message, and this kind of visual correspondence, because it just doesn't make sense yet. There's something we can do here that I think is really going to combat both issues of the vertical text and that visual correspondence. And what I'm going to suggest is we take the timeline entries and just kind of put them on a slant like this a little bit. It's going to make it much easier to read, okay? Then you can even make these a little bit closer, but what I'm getting at is, or even eliminate one, but what I'm getting at is this. And I'm going to allow you to do this because I think it's just going to be worth it to kind of bend a little bit of recommendations here just for the sake of this being very, very much indicative. We still have, let me know about this, Stephen. It's still there. There needs to be a space in there. I mean, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but let me know what's going on there. Is there a space and it's just rendering as it's not? I'm just really confused there. I don't think there's a space after that period. So you got to get that space in there. Absolutely. A portfolio reviewer or a hiring professional won't even get to the second page if there's not a space after that period. It's that important. Okay. So anyways, what I was saying is this: we'll take a little illustration of a fountain pen, or better yet, do a little bit of research to see what kind of pen George Bernard Shaw preferred. I'm going to guess, based on the time, it was a fountain pen. So what you can do is just take a little illustration of a fountain pen, all right, and just put it on the same angle as the timeline entries. That way it makes sense. And there will be this aha moment when the viewer comes down and says, oh, okay, so what's this time? Oh, wait a second, there was a signature. Oh, I get it. It's the pen from the signature. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's going to create this aha moment. And that is one of the things we're after in graphic design, is that aha moment where you can actually force the viewer into making this discovery where things all of a sudden make sense, right? So think about that. All right, I want to talk about your rags a little. I think your rags are set up pretty nicely. Looking good. I tell you something, your rags are done very well. A little bit of angle right there. You might consider dropping that to the next line. That should really take care of that entire paragraph. Try it. Verbal wit. Okay, over here, these rags are almost too perfect, and you don't want this to be misconstrued as justified type. So you definitely want a little bit of stagger, a little bit of zigzag in your rags. Now, theoretically, a rag should go, long line, short line, long line, short line. So there's not noticeable though. So I think these are great rags right here. Short line, long line, short line, long. That's fantastic right here. For the most part, your art really, this is great right here, except we got kind of this little angle right there. So think about that. Other than that, I think we are looking fantastic. So try those changes. Let me know what you think. If you want to run it by here again, that's great. We'll be looking at this again next week. So if you want me to look at it before that, I'll be more than glad to. You know me, as I said way back in week one, if you're working, I'm working. Boy, that's just bugging me. So let me know. Let me know. Let me know about that space right there. That's just, I won't be able to sleep tonight. It's a designer's curse, by the way. I just got done looking at a thing online. It was on YouTube, and it was a designer's curse, and you've probably already got it as you've noticed things. And there was this thing on YouTube, and it was a thing that said, it was a picture, and it said, can you spot the differences in between these two? They were identical images, and it was like a 7-minute video describing the differences and how only geniuses can see the differences. And I looked at it and I was like, well, the light source is different. So, and sure enough, it was. So that's, again, the designer's curse is that, and it's also a blessing, is that you really, really become super um, aware of things. So, okay. Anyway, so I thought I'd share that with you. Anyways, fun little story, right? Anyways, so there's where we're at. Great job. Questions, comments, concerns, you know the drill, right? I'm right here. So let me know. Thanks, man.